Welcome to R Mochi Podcast, the only podcast rated R for Robin. This is podcast number 18 with Zunaira Arshad. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Out of 10, how am I doing?
Yeah, Zunaira Arshad, yeah.
Awesome. Zunaira, you work at Drive Capital, correct?
Drive Capital, yeah.
And you are a
venture capital firm.
Awesome.
Based out of Ohio. Yeah.
Nice. And you said so you're back in Ohio. Been traveling a bunch the past week, and for your work, you're generally traveling like a shitload.
Yeah, that would be correct. That's very correct. I think in the past 2 weeks, I had a day in the office on Monday, and then Tuesday through Thursday in New York, came back Thursday morning from New York to Columbus for the day, then flew to LA in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
Came back to Columbus on Sunday. Monday was in the office. Spent a few days in the office, then went to Raleigh, North Carolina, then went to Chicago. Just got back today. And next week is looking like we'll be in New York for part of the week, and then Chicago again for part of the week, and then back. So this job I kind of knew what I was signing up for, but I didn't realize like how quickly I would be jumping into the thick of.
Generally, what are you doing?
Traveling.
Like, what are you doing for all of your travels? Like, is it for meetings? Is it for
exactly?
conferences?
Yeah, it's been a mix of both. I think for the most part, what like 80% of what the travel will be just meetings, meeting founders and CEOs, trying to figure out if certain companies are investable for us.
Mm-hmm.
But I attended NYC NFT, the NFT conference in New York that just happened. That was more so just to see the breadth and depth of projects that are out there in the ecosystem, and meet like a whole bunch of founders in one go. But and then there's some board meetings. So like companies we've already invested in, and they're like they have their quarterly board meetings or annual board meetings, and then we go and we see the progress of how the company's doing and like against their KPIs and objectives and key results.
So you mentioned
it's cool.
You mentioned an NFT conference. Is there much of like a venture capital like is there much of a venture capital market in NFTs right now? Is that something that's happening?
I think a lot of the traditional VCs are trying to understand how to interact with the blockchain and crypto ecosystems.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, like the two use cases that kind of took off were NFTs and DeFi for the most part, that have like had mass amounts of user adoption and traction. And so for us, it's a priority to like make sure we understand the projects out there and see if there are certain aspects of the ecosystem that make sense for us to invest in.
So when you say DeFi, do you mean like
And
MetaMask,
I
like
think
specific projects, or like DAOs?
I think DAOs for us at least is like this next arena that we're looking into more. We're looking into DeFi in like everything from staking protocols, things that help build out the infrastructure for payment solutions, wallets, everything. Yeah, like
What about like
anything
swap
that kind of
exchanges?
goes along with it.
Because swap exchanges have been
Yeah,
messy the
yeah.
last
So
couple months.
I love that as a problem to like look into. I mean, you know, like there's a lot of obviously there's a huge regulatory arena that comes into play when we look at these projects. There's also just like level of longevity of a project and what we think will outlast, because the investments we make typically have a way longer life cycle, right? We go from seed, which is the earliest stage, like usually like a very small number of just a founding team and maybe like one or two early employees, an idea, people who haven't really been able to build out their teams yet and
So
like
it's even
build
like
out their
it's like
project yet or
pre-early
product.
adopters.
Very early. And then we go all the way to like pre-IPO investments, which is companies that are going to go ideally public. So they're in the last rounds of funding, and then they're going to be able to like exit. And so, I mean, the check sizes also differ. You go from, I think, like, I mean, a lot like venture dollars are constantly being injected into all of the startup ecosystem right
Hmm.
now, like all types of startups and all verticals. But you might see like a $500,000 check up to like maybe 75 million or higher. But it just depends on like the life cycle of the company and how much proof they've been able to put out in the market. So
Hmm.
for blockchain based companies and crypto based companies, I'm trying to figure out my thesis exactly around like how much it makes sense for us as a firm
Hmm.
to like what life cycle we should look at for a project. Obviously, we'll look at all of them, but it's just in the crypto ecosystem, projects have mass amounts of traction, like really quickly sometimes at a
Hmm.
very escalated scale that they also not might not be like durable, right? So swaps, like we have Uniswap, we have Sushi Swap, we have other types of projects that are trying to like overcome, you know, uh, gas fees and a lot of different mechanisms that'll make it easier for to onboard users. They're trying to hide kind of like the blockchain piece and the crypto piece from a user so that they can onboard people who are just really not crypto native.
Hmm.
And you know, who knows which one's going to come out on top, but the market defining swap is where we want to be then,
Hmm.
right? There might be ones that are like well past wanting to even raise from traditional VCs too. So we're not necessarily looking at we're not going to push someone to take our money, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because there are other ways of funding, and we know that from crypto, people are funding through token sales, and they're not even going through like traditional VC rounds, so and funding. So it's a really interesting kind of area to play in, right? Because a lot is being invented too.
Yeah, yeah. So is Drive Capital currently invested in any different in any crypto startups, any crypto initiatives?
No, so me along with like a few other new investors, like we and some of our GPs have all and do intend to continue looking in the crypto and blockchain space,
Hmm.
but we personally haven't actually invested. So a lot of the things that we've invested in that, projects that might or portfolio companies that might be people might be more familiar with include like Duolingo,
I use
Udacity,
Duolingo. I need to
a
be
lot of
more attentive for
yeah,
that.
yeah. um, Root, which is an insurance play. Um, there's Olive, which is huge in like the healthcare space. Um, so I mean, we look at robotics, AI, ML. Uh, there's really we're thematic investors, so it's whatever like the investors are interested in. I have a background in blockchain and crypto, so I'm interested in looking at blockchain and crypto products. I also have a background in healthcare, and an interest in healthcare, so maybe I'll look at the healthcare market,
Hmm.
in the future too. So we're not held to any one area. We are able to like go deep in the areas that like we understand, have an interest in, are ready to like obsess about and learn about. And I think crypto is just like a fascinating ecosystem to continuously keep tabs on. It's hard to also.
Yeah,
So
I
much is
imagine.
being invented like constantly.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, so one thing I was kind of wondering about, just like, so there is just like the blockchain space and like keeping tabs on, you know, currencies, swaps, different utilities for just like the decentralized financing of things. But like with companies that are focused on with blockchain integrated companies that are specifically kind of focused on like the medical space, on journalism or something. Do they have? Is that looked at differently as an investment option, specifically because it's in the blockchain space, or what could it be seen similarly to other platforms that are in the space. So like, could we compare like what was like the big uh, blockchain uh, the big blockchain thing for reporters, and I know it was a consensus thing.
Civil.
Civil, yeah. If we like compare Civil to like a CNN news source thing, or a would those be seen in similar spaces because they're related to news, or would it be seen differently because it's on a new like blockchain technology? At least in your opinion.
So the way I think, yeah, I think so. I'll speak for myself and not for like
Hmm.
my firm because right now, so just to give a little bit of context, I actually just started there um,
Congratulations.
2 weeks ago, and I am obviously jumping into the thick of things, but also uh, really, you know, trying to develop my own theses
Hmm.
to just be a better investor. And I'm coming from the startup environment and startup ecosystem, and I actually set up my own consultancy. And I worked with a lot of early stage startups that way prior to coming into the investing side. So this is like where I'm developing my thesis. And then I'm also developing like my understanding of how I could be an investor in this space, given like where I invest, the team I invest with.
Hmm.
And when start to think about and see the projects that are kind of like taking off, um, there are certain ones that I think are going to have way more traction and stickiness, and that's because they don't have as they like kind of hide the blockchain piece
Hmm.
a little bit and the crypto piece. So you might really be interacting with a crypto platform, but on the front end, you don't really interact with like wallets and your crypto,
Yeah.
and you don't have to like kind of play in that space. The people who are building the product are making sure to do that for you in the back end so that you're like invested in a crypto ecosystem
Hmm.
in some way. But when you're interacting with the project and product, you're not actually
Yeah, it's like kind of like
like thinking about cryptocurrency at all.
yeah, it's like when you go to a supermarket, you don't really want to have to worry about like sourcing nutrition and stuff, or the you know
Exactly.
the importing, exporting. You just want to be like, can I buy this? Can I eat this? Or can I use this for my toilet's clogged? Will it function?
That's a great comparison because you'll have the people who really do care and they
Hmm.
really want to read the nutrition label and they know exactly like what sort of nutrients they want and what sort of products to avoid or what sort of ingredient lists to avoid. And then you have folks who are just like, tell me it's organic.
Hmm.
And then you have folks who are like, give me the cheapest price
Yeah.
item here that like fits this category. And so you have very different types of users. Um, the product that gives you all the information in the like simplest way possible and satisfies all three groups is probably the
Yeah.
product that is going to be bought the most, right? And so I mean, I'm looking at like analogies to lots of products that exist in the web 2 space and then considering like how they exist in the metaverse and in the crypto ecosystem,
Hmm.
and without using the words web 3 crypto metaverse,
Yeah.
I'm thinking like, okay, look, these people are doing uh audio streaming, let's say, in a very unique way that actually mirrors SoundCloud in a lot of ways but helps people monetize on their music
Hmm.
per like in a more nuanced way and in something that is advocating for the producer of the music more than like other like the individual artists than others who like work around them.
Hmm.
And this is something that people can believe in and an idea that people can connect with, and so they might actually use a platform just on that, just knowing that that exists. They don't want to know the details of how.
Hmm.
um like if we go and think about things that way and someone's like, okay, well actually on Spotify, I think I heard this um this like stat the other day, but they were like, you need to listen to 69 minutes per hour of music on Spotify to get your like money's worth
Huh.
to get the full value out, which is impossible, right? Because there's that
Also,
69 minutes
69.
in an
Aha,
hour.
very nice.
So
The Squid Games or whatever.
I actually haven't. So weirdly enough, and this is veering off the topic that we're talking about a little bit,
We
but
can veer back, don't worry.
I've I've only seen episode 4 of Squid Games, which people think is like insane. They're
Interesting.
like, "What is wrong with you?" I'm totally the person that I think often will take exactly what I need from a book, movie, like a series, and I won't focus on finishing it from end to end. There's certain things I finish from cover to cover.
Hmm.
Um, and those are probably like really powerful, really worth my time,
Hmm.
in my opinion. And there's certain things that I like won't. I'll just take exactly what I need from them. So when everyone was talking about Squid Games and I had like a group of friends who had been watching it, I was like, okay, great, I'm gonna jump in to episode 4
I'm
and just
trying to
like
think what
see
episode 4 is
if I
now.
can see the value. Episode
Is that
4
the one with the
is where they
honeycombs?
have the tug of rope, I think.
Oh, tug of
Or
war.
I think it's episode 4, but it's tug of
Yeah,
war
yeah.
using the rope that they like chop. Um Insane, but I got a sense of the characters. I got a sense of like the evil actor, the
Hmm.
anti-protagonist, the protagonist. I got a sense of like the I got like the visceral, emotional feelings that happen per like when like grotesque events occur,
Yeah.
like
That, 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 that-
within the series.
yeah, that episode is
And
actually a
I got a
pretty good
snapshot.
microcosm.
But so I mean I could have like a 50% useful conversation on the topic and know what people are talking about, but I didn't actually have to watch
I think it's enough
the
to
whole
it's enough to justify
the
rolling your eyes at the Halloween costumes that everybody's wearing.
totally. No, it's and honestly, I didn't roll my eyes because I'm like, look at these people, like what a quick turnaround in thinking about what to do and like wear for Halloween. I'm not a Halloween person at all.
Hmm.
I would say like I actually like I'm that person at the party where they're like, "What are you?" And I'm like, "I'm the worst person at a Halloween party because I'm wearing regular clothes." Um, but
I'm the buzzkill.
I'm the buzzkill. I'm totally the buzzkill, and that is, I think that's like why you and I are one and the same in some ways, right? No, I'm totally kidding. But that's a really interesting. I wish I could ask you some questions because I'm like, why is this your handle?
Go
Um,
for it. Oh, wait. So you're talking about my Discord handle.
am I allowed to say that out
It's
loud?
fine. Yeah, my Discord handle is Captain
Okay.
Buzzkill. So it's actually related to like my brother. My brother used to have like a sign-in name for his like Xbox account. It was Captain Crunk, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat, but I don't feel like that that embodies me enough. I like to be a buzzkill about things, or I like to just kind of ruin people's time with stuff, and so I went with Captain Buzzkill. Plus,
That's
it's
funny.
something.
I don't actually see that. I don't see you as someone. I mean, I haven't known you in depth and like for a long time, um, but I think there's probably a lot of nuance to what that actually means. And we probably can't get into it, but I don't think you're a
I
buzz.
hope
It's
so,
funny because
but at the
I mean,
same
you're
time,
literally entertaining these conversations with all of these people, trying to find out like what makes them tick. I think that was a podcast that I tried to create once, by the way.
hmm,
Um, and we didn't end up actually doing it. But
we're just like a bunch
it's
of friends.
yeah, back at consensus, we thought about I think it was me and my um, teammate at the time, Everett,
Mhm.
and we're
Is it
like,
Everett Muzzy?
yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
he was on. I think his
He's super
podcast
cool.
number 11 or 12.
Yeah, exactly. So we thought about doing this thing um, called "What Keeps You Up at Night." Like
Hmm.
I think that's what we were calling it, but it was a podcast about just like understanding like what makes people take what they think about in the evenings, and that came from like the fact that a lot of people got obsessed about crypto and blockchain and Ethereum And we were like, what is in common with, what do these people actually think about and what caused them to like get here and like care about these concepts? And I mean, for a lot of people, it probably was just like the new exciting thing. They'd
Hmm.
done like Web 2, they'd done Web 1.0. They had been like early adopters in a lot of ways, and they're like, this is the next real thing. We'll make money in this space, or we'll build like at the next stage of our career, we'll build something here. But for a lot of people, it was also like, wow, for the first time, like people like me are going to be represented and advocated for with tech tools. Um, as long as we build them right, I want to be part of that. I'm like,
Hmm.
want to make a conscious effort of making sure that I have a voice in the room as we like build out these projects. And so there was like a lot of different takes and a lot of different types of people and diversity of thought that has brought like has caught people's attention, um or a lot of different, I guess, stimuli that have caught people's attention and like brought them into the space, and we were just very excited about exploring that.
So what do you think brought you into the space? Was it more of like an ideological pull, like kind of taking away power from like banks, the industrialized or not industrialized, but the centralized system, or was it more of like an early investor kind of like jumping on it while it's still fresh, while it's still being built out?
Funnily enough, like when you hear that I work in VC,
Yeah.
people might have a guess that's like one way, but um I mean, this actually probably a better way to answer this is like dialing back a little and talking about what I studied in when I was in school,
Hmm.
and how I even got interested in like databases. But it's very to the short answer to that is ideological,
Okay.
or philosophical. I think when I think about like my point on this earth and in this life, I think a lot of it, like a lot of what motivates me, has to do with purpose, and making sure like I have some sort of positive uh, impact. And I think we measure impact in a lot of weird and arbitrary ways.
Hmm.
But I definitely care about living a life worth living, right? And so when I think about what brought me into the space, it's really interesting because a lot of it was just like combined with who I wanted to be and who I saw myself, like a future self of mine, myself as. And then on top of that, who like I am, which is just like a very curious individual, and how like those things converge and brought me to the space. So I studied global affairs it when I like first was in college,
Hmm.
and the where I went to school, basically I thought the global affairs department was like awesome for people who want to work in security, or learn about like foreign relations and then go work in the government,
Hmm.
but from like a
You went
security perspective.
you went to Yale, correct?
um yes, I went to Yale for undergrad. So basically I was really interested in like development, and I think like um so many people were interested in like the on the other side of things, that when I was in class I was like, I think there's a better way for me to like study this stuff,
Hmm.
and that came in the form of like studying global health. So like I kind of doubled down on that, and the reason why I did that was, one, my parents are physicians, they're pediatricians, so like I had an interest in the world of health, but I just didn't know like what sliver like was my piece. Like was it being a doctor, or was it being like someone who just like studies population health?
Or like an
And
epidemiologist or something.
yeah. And I honestly, I was sitting, I think I like took an intro to global health class. I didn't even know global health was a subject
Hmm.
when I first entered college, but I took this class, thought the professor was really cool. And then I was sitting at dinner and I heard this med student talking about, actually like just recounted the story today, so it might be a little long-winded because I'm probably gonna embellish with even more details. But I I haven't talked about this in a while. But essentially he had been doing research on the Syrian border, on the Turkish side,
Hmm.
of global health research
You
with
said,
Syrian
sorry,
population, refugee population.
you said the Turkish side of the Syrian border.
Yeah, so Kilis and Rahanla, Turkey, and Gaziantep. A lot of Syrians, came from around Aleppo during the height of the crisis into these cities. And
This is
Killick,
like
the New York
around.
Times had just published an article.
Sorry. What years was this?
Sorry, go
Was this
ahead.
like around like the ISIS, like the rise of ISIS in the
This
area?
is right before.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so 2014. So this is during the basically like rise.
Hmm.
So I heard him talking about his research and like how stressful the situation was. And I was maybe 18 or 19 and I said, "Dang, like I want to see what's going on there because the news, I was really interested in like global health, but from like a journalism perspective as well."
Hmm.
And I like wrote for the YDN and I worked on YTV. So, which was the OTV at the time. It was just, I literally was like, okay, I concocted a plan. I'm gonna go with this med student when he goes back to do like more of his research.
Hmm.
And I'm just gonna tag along. And my college, everyone was like, you're crazy, like you can't go. This is like a crisis-stricken country. It's literally one of the most dangerous places in the world. And I like told my parents I was going to Istanbul on spring break with a few friends, and actually we just went to the Syrian border, which was insane. Now
How
that I
happy
think
were your
about it.
parents about that?
Um, oh my God. They were like, we're gonna disown you. You are not putting yourself in like safety. You're putting yourself in danger, and like, how could you not tell us and this and that? And I was like, dang, guys, like you just don't understand. Like, do you know what it's like to be in like crisis stricken situation or like, have you seen this? And they're like, yes, and you have. We are of Pakistani descent. So they're like, you've been to Pakistan, like growing up a lot. Like you've seen these, like, but I literally it was a whole new world, right? Like there were barrel bombs and like shrapnel and like children, like causing like children to have like brain surgery because there was a barrel bomb that like blew up way too close to like where they were playing,
Hmm.
or um there's a lot of like psychological trauma associated with obviously like this refugee experience. And I went and I saw all of it and I was like, I need to care about this and learn about this. And something one of the doctors who was there working in the polyclinic said to me was, you can use technology. Like we need, because we don't have enough talent, like we actually need more like tech implementation here to help us. Like when
Hmm.
there's a body that is in the field, we can't actually send out one of our five doctors down there to like grab that person because like they tend to snipe physicians right now,
Medics,
or
yeah.
like physicians are, yeah. So we need like a machine that can go and like pick up, like locate where the body is and pick it up safely and bring it back to like, and ideally it's durable and can we can do that,
Hmm.
rather than sending one of the few physicians who are left in this region like out and into danger. uh there were people who said like, I mean, I attended, I, like along with these physicians, I went and I sat in patient visits, and there was a gynecologist treating like a geriatric patient, and like obviously their specialty like and their training had nothing to do with like the patient population that they were serving.
Hmm.
And they, on top of that, they spoke a different language. Sometimes they were like Turkish physicians treating Syrian patients. Turkish physicians speak Turkish. Um, Syrians speak Arabic. So in the Shami dialect. So like they weren't even able to like they had 15 minutes and have to communicate medical history, an event that's happened, like communicate allergies,
Hmm.
everything to figure out an approach, a
Yeah, I
medical
don't imagine there were
approach, and a
translators like
diagnosis.
readily available in every single
Yeah.
location.
And at home, my parents had been talking a lot about electronic medical records because they had to implement them in their practices.
Hmm.
Begrudgingly so, I think, because they're in that generation that's like a little less tech savvy. So I got really obsessed with like learning about electronic medical records.
Hmm.
This started a 3-year long process of me like obsessing over this one thing, and people are like, this is the most boring thing to obsess over, but okay. um, I guess this is your like thesis and what you want to study. I actually eventually switched into studying molecular biology as well. And so I like doubled down on like science and health. And I um as I was graduating college, I was like, okay, this could happen a few different ways. I care about social causes. Maybe I'll go to law school. Maybe I'll go to med school. The paradigm of I should keep going to school because this is like why my parents work so hard and
Hmm.
send me and like to these educational environments. Like they want me to keep going. So I even took the MCAT, I took the LSAT. Like I prepared my
Shit.
applications for all these things. And I was like, wait, it was senior year, and my friend John, he goes, we should like pitch your thesis or like this electronic medical record implementation to this startup pitch competition at the startup pitch competition. And I was like, sure, let's go. And it was the first time like I've created a deck, I've like made a pitch, I spoke about like what I was doing, and like I talked about like a real world like application to building it.
Hmm.
And it was like it was like I finally got bit, right? So I was like, I need to work in tech. Before I go to grad school, I need to like go and work in this like innovative space where people are just building things and taking an idea and like making it be something real that they can use,
Hmm.
because I want to build this one thing, this electronic medical record for refugees populations. I was talking to someone, um, a family friend, talking to a lot of people trying to figure out like where to work. And I looked at places like Google. I looked at places like other like incubators for social impact. Like I didn't even know what a startup really was, right?
Hmm.
Like Google is not a startup. But I was like, I just need to work in tech. Um, the
I imagine you did like a
outcome
couple
of
rounds
that
of
was
like multiple like Peace Corps initiatives.
no, I definitely didn't go. I didn't apply to the Peace Corps at all. But yeah, I would look for things like that and
Yeah.
for people like that and see, okay, who's an engineer, who's actually building something. I tried to convince John to come and build this thing in real life with me, and he was like, "No, dude, I already have my like actual startup that I'm already building."
No.
But I'm glad you really liked it, and he's still one of my best friends to date. So he I mean, I just interviewed, talked to so many people, and like someone I grew up with in Peoria, Illinois, when my parents lived there, like before I moved to the suburbs of Chicago. I think we moved when I was 4, so like this is like way early on, but someone I've known forever. She goes, I work at this place. There it was co-founded by the co-founder of Ethereum. Um, and there's a project where they're trying to build a distributed ledger, like electronic medical record system on the Ethereum blockchain. And I was like, half those words I don't know what you're talking about. Like,
But the other half is exactly
but
what I
I'm
was
so
looking
in.
for.
Yeah. So, but I was like, but I'm so in. Went, had a conversation, took the job. Long story short, didn't really that startup kind of fizzled really quickly because there were like co-founder disputes.
Mm.
And I just think generally like it was really early to
Hmm.
be thinking about an electronic medical record in the blockchain
Well, for
space.
a long time, it was
Um,
really just like come up with as many plausible ideas, not even how many are
exactly.
reasonably attainable in a short period. It's like at the 2000 like 17 to 2019 like period was all just about like can we get interest in this for people to build out to want to build out the technology. Meanwhile, consensus will build out the tools for everybody to try to build things.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean that was what was going on.
Hmm.
But I thought there's so much in this space I don't know, and there's a lot that I can learn by just like writing about it and researching it. So I started doing like market intel research and like writing a newsletter about it. And I just kind of doubled down. I went to Joe and I was like, I still want a job here. Like I know I'm not going to be working at this project because it's not going to really probably see, itself through to the next quarter. And he was like, you have 6 weeks, like find a job if you can, like you can
Mm.
stay. And that's what I did. So a few years I kind of just did that, and I learned a lot about, I like did took on a bunch of different roles, learned a lot in every single role. And then I was like, okay, my parents really want me to go to grad school, so maybe I should consider going to law school. I did research with someone I knew from undergrad who was like this brilliant like future uh, professor. She's like on the market to be an academic, and she's insanely smart, and she was studying like corporate governance, and this is during like right after the BLM movement, and
Hmm.
so very recent. But I was like, okay, for a year I'll kind of do that, and I'll think about DAOs too, because I was really interested in like governance in general,
Yeah.
and DAOs was a concept that was just popping up. Realized, okay, law school is probably not for me during this year, and
What would you have gone to law
but this
school
was like a
for?
really
Because you
cool.
mentioned it a couple of times.
I think I would have done like either like more refugee advocacy or
Uh,
like like I would worked in tech and like uh
intellectual
as
property.
like I would want to be a counsel, like someone at chief counsel at a startup I really cared about. I still wanted to work in
I
the
see.
startup
Okay.
space, like down the line of business. I think that was more so to find like something to appease my parents who were like, how would you stop going to school? like we don't understand that
The real question,
as
are
a
you an only
concept. Like
child and
what
do
does
you
that mean?
have all of their expectations on you?
I'm an only child, yes.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
And they also are like probably the two people in my life I'm most inspired by, and they are wonderful human beings who've done so much, who care about their communities that they live in and back home. Um, and I really like admire them. And so I was like, maybe they like know the answers, but also they don't work in the space I do.
Hmm.
And so they said to me, they're like, okay, great, like you know, jump through hoops, explore these things, thank you, but maybe you know your path best. And so this is my whole story. Wow. You're barely talking. I'm so sorry, but
No, I mean, like,
I'm
I
like
really don't
really
want to, I don't want to derail the story when you're like, you said yourself, like, you don't have many opportunities to, like, tell your story to, like, an audience and just kind of, so,
well, I don't even get to think about this as much because I'm in the thick of my job is to listen, and maybe I don't do the best job of it, but like hopefully I'll continue to like grow and learn. I think my job is a mix of two things: asking the right questions and listening a lot.
mhm.
And I love that. Like I thoroughly enjoy that. But I also think to answer your question about whether like my approach to life is philosophical or and ideological or more oriented about being like an early adopter and making
Mhm.
myself like a sheer amounts of wealth. Like um there's gonna be a little bit of truth to both things. Maybe I don't know if it's about like
I mean,
obtaining money and
ideally you
capital,
would
but I
always
do think
want to be.
capital is really important.
Yeah, ideally you would
Yeah,
always,
ideally, but
yeah.
I mean, this is all to say, like, I went down the journey of thinking about practical life and maintaining a quality of life, you know, so I do have to make a living, and I do care about how and what I do day to day affects like society,
Mhm.
but more so, I was really interested in things that I thought would lead to like a better world, you know, that we're building,
What was a better way to make, like,
and
a
we all
more
have.
positive impact?
Yeah, and maybe because of the way we talk about impact a lot, I do like think about how can my efforts and like my time go to like the broader like spanning impact, or like how can my effort and my time actually be used in a
Most
way
efficiently.
that I build something that yeah, I don't want to say the word efficient. I was really avoiding saying that, but
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
but everybody
Um,
kind of needs to think about it in some capacity.
right, yeah. So I mean, it's a mix of things. Like I started to do more of that legal research, realized like, okay, this is probably not the former arena through which I'll probably keep thinking about the ideas and work that I want to do.
Hmm.
But this was really useful in helping me understand like how the legal world kind of works
Hmm.
right now. Um, and I went back, I just like started this consultancy and I started working with like startups in the crypto ecosystem again because so much happened while I like dipped out for a little.
Hmm.
You know, the rise of DeFi and NFTs,
Yeah,
and it was
shit
like
moves
all
fast.
starting, and so it moves exponentially fast.
Yep.
And I did that, and I had a friend from college reach out to me randomly and was like, "Oh, I see you're in Chicago. Like, I work at a VC firm in the Midwest. We should catch up. I'm going to be in Chicago." And I was like, "Sure." We were just talking about NFTs and crypto, and he's like, "How did you get into this?" Like where we went to school, we were not encouraged to necessarily think about startups and innovation as much.
Hmm.
It's like we could, but you had to seek it because the things that Yale is known for and does such a good job in like are really
It's like putting you into
um I mean
legacy,
they're next
successful
level in
industries.
the humanities.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, but I think more importantly, like I learned how to write and how to communicate ideas and like the really important soft skills like I probably needed to know while I was there. And then those like it was my job to go and like find the thing I needed to be working on.
Hmm.
But it wasn't like a school where everyone was starting companies and like, you know, pitching to accelerators and VCs and like we weren't that. There are other schools that do that and we just weren't.
Hmm.
And he was saying, you know, you should just come out and like visit Columbus. And I was like, sure. And everyone's like, okay, like so you should be a VC and you should be an investor because you know maybe you'll look at projects and think about projects in a way that that'll just help like you have a different outlook than we all do and they really just valued I think the fact that we all have like a diversity of backgrounds that will allow us to just look at projects differently
Hmm.
from like each other and I think that that does have like immense benefit when you're trying to return capital. I
Hmm.
think that that does, right? Like I think you're just going to look in more places and at different things and you're not maybe not going to miss like opportunities you otherwise would have just because you didn't have people who like those things and thought about those things
Hmm.
on your team. Also, they were just wonderful people. And I think that that matters too. I'm like I think these people actually care about the means, about the things that they're investing in and the impact that it's going to have in this world. And so if it is about injecting capital into spaces and like building things, well, I want to do it with people who actually care about, ideally, like express opinions about bettering the world and like do genuinely like are nice people, you
Hmm.
know, like and care about doing that in a way that is honest to like their own morals, a moral compass. So I'm really driven by purpose and like the approach to getting to where I think I should be, or building like out something that I think should exist in the world. But
Hmm.
I've also realized like maybe I'm not the smartest person to go do it, and like maybe I'm not the person to go build it. I would love to be around for the journey when someone else is doing it though, and like facilitate in whatever way I can, and ideally like also be able to think about a lot of different things and ideas. And so it just fit with my personality too.
I think that's like hopefully also the direction with like Mochi. The idea is to kind of be around some of like the change makers and people like with the good ideas that are like starting things and seeding the right kinds of like goodwill and good intentions in like making things hopefully better for us technologically in the future. Uh, and like with that, so are you participating in the Mochi Grand Prix? Do you know?
No, I'm not actually sure exactly what that is. So tell me about it.
Yeah, apparently. So it's a new it's like a competition that started in Mochi. Where we're trying to get like tangible artifacts of like participation, things people are doing in their journeys, to kind of show like how they're improving, and we kind of directed it at a theme. And so this one is like the Leaf Grand Prix. It's kind of themed around the Mario Kart. If you ever played any of those games, they've got like the Leaf Cup, the Star Cup, the Flower Cup, the Mushroom Cup. And so like the Leaf Cup, it's around green sustainability, Luigi. I don't know. And so
That's awesome.
I'm participating in it, and there's a I don't know if it's an ETH prize or like a cash prize for the top three. I am not a judge, insofar as nobody is technically a judge. I think it's like a thing. Everybody who's participating votes on. They get placed first, second, and third. And like and so you kind of gear your journey around something in the green space, be it like drawing a leaf every day, creating some fantastical art piece, and your journey, it's supposed to reflect something that you're doing during the journey. And me and my team, it's one other person, is a friend from college. We started working on a written piece. I don't want to divulge too much, just in case it works and it's a good idea. But in terms of like what we're doing for the journey, we're like each either reading an academic research paper, or watching some sort of documentary related to sustainability, ecology, energy, the economics around it. And one of the things that like I tried to focus on, because like I studied economics in college, economics and English literature. I focused on just kind of like how feasible it is to like seed funding for environmentally sustainable portfolios, and businesses that are trying to do more of that. And a lot of the large consensus around portfolios that are directed towards like goodwill, so against like recycling, against so for recycling, against non-renewable resource energy usage, against things that are socially reprehensible, like slave labor or whatever. Like those portfolios generally don't do super well. And the consensus around a lot of these is like you can do more goodwill investing in things, making money, and then and then directly putting it towards funds that you know about and care about, rather than putting money into a lot of these companies, losing money, and then pulling out when it kind of fails. And I don't know, it was really kind of a kick in the gut, uh, in terms of like, oh, what are some what are some like goodwill, some wholesome financial strategies we can try to employ to make the world better, as opposed to just putting things into recycling bins and making sure that we're not like participating in fast fashion. Is there something we could do with our dollars? And investing just doesn't seem like a super at least like financially sustainable way to be doing it for like the individual, uh, which is weird and unfortunate.
I think that um I mean, first of all, I didn't realize the competition was happening, so I haven't actually thought of a an entry or anything like that, but maybe I'll think about it. Um, it sounds awesome. I think about yeah, I think about the impact that you'd have, and to be completely clear, like we aren't impact investors in that like social
Hmm.
impact based investors. Like we invest that we think will make money also,
Hmm.
like that also should exist
Oh,
in the world.
I'm
Like
not.
we
I'm
don't
not.
invest in
I'm
thin
not saying.
industry.
I'm not saying that's what Drive Capital does. I'm just saying like this is
No,
just a
no, no.
thing that
I know you're not. But I just want to clarify is like I think my I outlook is like as an investor to help projects and founders and invested in ideas that people want
hmm.
to use and like will help use systems like infrastructure based plays for the blockchain ecosystem, tools that'll just like help at a base layer for a vertical or an industry,
Hmm.
tools that will be useful, um, and people who will think about using them in a responsible way, but maybe not like things that directly have a social impact use.
Hmm.
Because yes, like when I make money from that, when my team where we get returns on those investments, then I have an opportunity to take that capital and put it in an area with concentrated amounts of it and put it towards a cause or a team
Hmm.
or in an area that I think like it'll service directly with time and
Hmm.
with like talent. So if I find an organization that really does know how to do green reentry for like in for prisoners who are coming back into society, well, dang, like they're doing an amazing job. Why am I trying to create a startup to do that?
Hmm.
Like let me give them my capital. These people who like know how to kind of do this
So
in
are
a
you
good
saying
way.
your personal capital
And
or like
and
company investment into communities rather
no,
than
no, my
corporations?
personal capital.
Uh-huh, gotcha.
When I make money and my earnings from like my day-to-day work, my like 9 to 5, not that I see it like that, but you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
uh I get to take my dollars and vote towards what I think is gonna work too.
Hmm.
In my public participation aspect of my life or in my private life, right? Um outside of my professional like approach to making money.
Hmm.
So as long as I care about the means and what I'm creating, like I'm not going to invest in tobacco and alcohol and like um things that I don't want to invest in things that will be used to in nefarious ways to hurt people. And
Hmm.
so I think about the implications that like the things I'm investing in will ideally have. But I think I don't overthink that part in that like let's just make sure this is not built for that and ideally is not going to be used for that.
Yeah, yeah.
And it has a use case that is necessary for like a user who would use this thing.
Hmm.
Um and it's something that'll probably take off in like a very large market. Okay, great. I make money back. Now I get to use this money that I made for this purpose of like I'm down to live a good quality life, ideally, but not like an egregiously lavish one,
Hmm.
because that just doesn't cause me like immense amounts of happiness after a certain level. Um, I ideally will be able to like take that money and then put it to the use that I think like makes sense. And in the communities I want to put it to use in. Um,
I wonder how
that would
like
be awesome.
feasible like community led you know think like Lincoln Park or like uh a Bloomingdale DAO. So it's like could communities organize governance through like the blockchain token model? I wonder if that's in any way something that could be implemented in the next 20 years. That'd be interesting. Just doing like mayoral votes
I
and
think
like
people are working on that and think about that and they do want it to work that way.
uh
I think that that is like a vision that a lot of people have for it. Now, how that comes to fruition
mhm.
is going to depend on the people building the things, the people using the things and piloting them and seeing if there is
Hmm.
um,
Yeah, real estate
participation. I
you
mean,
could
Mochi, we're
switch.
doing that, right?
Yeah, you could change like real estate investment into like token ownership and like staking in the community that way. I don't know.
Yeah.
I never really think of it that
I
way.
think I mean, people do are also looking at like fractionalized ownership of real estate,
Hmm.
and then thinking about how you share property and how then you have to probably vote. And obviously we have um, IRL like non-technical analogies to that with boards at like condo associations and
Hmm.
stuff like
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
sort of. But this will look different, and I think this will also if the system is built or like the rules that are created actually like incentivize thinking about betterment for everyone as a whole, I think that that's when you like you might get people participating in a it's just reframing the way you vote,
Yeah,
right? And like
it
the
would mix
areas you
around.
vote in.
It would change how like traditional politicking would have to operate.
Yeah, and maybe like a good place for us to start or thinking about how to bring that world about is just thinking about what do we need to build to be so that someone else can come build that world
Yeah.
or that product that exists in that world. Maybe there's something we still need to build right now
Hmm.
before we can even get there.
So
So what's that thing?
as as an investor, as a somebody working at a VC firm, um, what to either like the layperson or probably like more it might be simpler for somebody who's just kind of casually into crypto. What are like kind of signs, at least in the early, because we're still kind of in like a semi early crypto space, of like startups or initiatives that are worth seeding, as opposed to, people just like, which tokens are having the most ROI for this given period. What would you say are kind of like in your mind like hallmarks of things that are worth backing with your own with your own dollars, as opposed to, playing with somebody else's money?
I I think a lot of the stuff we've talked about, I think like infrastructure tool, like dev tools plays, like if there's an ecosystem that's having a hard time building out, no, like the Web3 applications are crashing all the time, and then
Hmm.
someone has diagnosed that the problem has to do with like how the node server uh interacts with, how a certain type of node interacts with the whole network.
Hmm.
And then they figured out how to like build more of those nodes or get more of those nodes on the network to like stop causing the application to fail. Well, then investing in that infrastructure um, improvement is going to allow more people to build on like that L1 or L2.
So
Um,
I think my
but
question
besides
is,
that, like the DAOs.
uh
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I think my question is kind of like, so my parents, they have a little bit of crypto, like my brother's recommendation, they should just like have a couple of coins. But to them, it is still strictly, it's still essentially like a stock, where you're just like speculating
Mhm.
on relative price. It'll probably go up in so many years, but crypto to them is still specifically an investment in this intangible coin. When, you know, in my mind, and I think in your mind, it's really about building the ecosystem, building out the space and the tooling and technology for more companies to build on this and make things actually properly decentralized. What would you think is like the best way of kind of like communicating that as value, as opposed to just like the raw token value that you see on the charts on like Coinbase or whatever?
I think, and this is not investment advice, but the way I look at things, I ideally they're interacting with some of these projects
Yeah.
and they're thinking, "Oh, I would use this,"
Hmm.
right? Or if not, like what do they think will last for the next, 10 years and appreciate in value?
Hmm.
And like a lot of that stuff that's more durable might just be a token for the, largest blockchain networks out there without being too
Yeah.
directed. Like that might make sense. I mean, I think you have to, I think for them it's like worth asking questions and trying to wrap their head around some of the concepts, and like they have people who can actually give them that information
Hmm.
um and break it down for them, might be patient with them as they ask those things. And then once they get that, I think then they use like their own gut of what they would use or what they think would last for 10 plus years. And yeah, you can look at like where people like the projects that people are talking about the most. I mean, when you invest in a stock today in like um, you know, Fortune 500 companies or something, you're looking at something that you think is going to be durable and is going to appreciate in value. And sometimes a way to look at that is like, do I use this company's products? Do I think that I'm going to continue to use them?
Hmm.
Do I
Well, generally,
know people who use them and like them?
generally,
Maybe it's at that simple.
when people generally invest in like Fortune 500, S&P 500, it's mostly because that there's, assuming you have a diversified enough portfolio as recommended by a lot of like mutual fund brokers, there is almost a guaranteed return regardless of how many of those companies you are actively using. Like, I might not be.
I mean, not, I don't mean an index, sorry.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, like, if you look at the companies, the largest companies that exist today,
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
like decide which of these, for five of them, where am I going to put my money?
Hmm.
I personally think about like what I use and what I think I'll continue to use and what my friends like.
So like the Apples,
And
Googles, Amazons, Teslas.
yeah, like I obviously there's risk of being wrong, or and there might be like a new innovator coming in and like beating these companies
Hmm.
and in what they do and replacing them. There's probably a larger likelihood of maybe like a pivot or like a new and a new uh, concept coming in and creating a whole new vertical.
Or regulating
There
the
might be a new company that
monopolies.
like goes, yeah, yeah, but I think, I mean, we still do vote with our dollars, right? Like, and if you want to see something continue to live and you think it because you actually use it and you like it, then maybe like invest there.
But this is a thing
If
also with like a lot of internet services. So Amazon, sure, you would pay regularly. Netflix, you would pay like a monthly thing. But like, most people who use like Facebook or YouTube or Google have never given a single dollar, as far as they know, to any of these companies. And so just kind of like changing the transparency of how a lot of these companies are making money and being more like holding them actually properly accountable for either like fair uses of data, fair usage of data. I think that like will need to eventually change. And for like when new people get introduced into these spaces, I think that'll become much more pertinent for like competition's sake. I don't know if I'm just rambling. Sorry.
I agree. No, no, I think that like that's a way to look at kind of new up and coming. Okay, let's take an example of a competitor. Like there are companies that have come and have had seen a rise that like have disrupted the space for a legacy player.
Mhm.
Um, uh, Intel has a competitor out there in the market that's doing really well, right?
Nvidia, I believe,
Um,
or AMD.
yeah,
AMD, yeah.
Nvidia, AMD, and Nvidia are like things that have come and done really well because people like buy and build these computers at home that they're going to use, and then they've just decided that that product actually is better for them
Hmm.
and that spec, is what they need or whatever. I mean, I'm trying not to get into the weeds of like what they actually do, but um cheaper, better product. Great. I'm going to buy that.
Yep.
Great. That stock soars. So now like they have to pay attention. Maybe they're gonna, you know, there's a couple of different ways a company like that then pivots. Like we've seen IBM stop making computers, right?
Yep.
Like because they all use Apple now,
Hmm.
but they pivoted. They still exist.
I
So
mean, Amazon also like
we're gonna
used to be just books. Like their biggest competitor for a long time was just Barnes and Noble.
totally. So I think, I mean, what we need to do is we need to think more critically about like the projects that we or the pro. I keep calling them projects because in my mind, I'm like they're still
Everything's a work in
like
progress.
everything is under progress. Everything is, either gonna be short-lived, long-lived, but it'll probably come to an end someday in some way.
Hmm.
The giants all have other people come and replace them. You can never be the best at everything. Um, Someone will come and beat you one day, right? Or like beat your record. And I I think that I personally like I don't want to like espouse like a certain outlook on life or like be preachy, but I do care about the harm that is caused by certain companies and
Hmm.
certain players in the space. And so when I think about what I can do, as small of an impact as it could have, it may have like a minute impact. I still am going to try to do the thing that I think is in line with like my understanding of what's like morally right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why most of my money I put in cryptocurrency, because I just think that there's like a likelihood a higher likelihood that me investing in that is going to make me feel better about like what I invested in
Mm-hmm.
for the future that I want to build.
Yeah.
And I let it kind of, without doing like too much analysis and too many predictions about the future and stuff like that. I do kind of just like let it sit there
Mm-hmm.
and bring it back to like, will I respect myself as a human being for putting my money into this thing?
What about like NFTs? You big into the
I am very supportive of like artists and creators, and my outlet is writing, right?
mm-hmm.
So and I wouldn't,
You
I
should
think
write
it
for the next
sometimes
zine.
can be
Zine just came
pretentious to
out.
call your yeah, I know, definitely. Um it can be pretentious to call yourself a writer, but like if you enjoy the act of writing, like that's something I enjoy that I think is like an artistic
Mm-hmm.
outlet. I wouldn't say I'm like the, you know, premier novelist of our times, like of the millennial generation. I'm definitely not, but um, like that's my art. That's what speaks to me. I understand why people are gonna buy something online in like a virtual environment when so much of our lives are lived online, and you could have your own opinions on whether that's good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
But we that's someone buying something that means something to them. And a lot of people may be buying things that they think are going to appreciate as well,
Mm-hmm.
because they think other people also think it means something to them, or they just think it's going to appreciate. But there are also people out there who just like buy something because they're like, this is awesome and I want my name to be associated as like a patron of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like that's um that's a beautiful thing. And that's exactly like what our money does, right?
Yeah.
As consumers,
I think one
but I personally don't have an NFT, which is a funny thing to admit. But I don't. I haven't found something that I've been so compelled to like invest my money in,
uh
because I think I need to be the owner of it.
I think one thing that like really drives like right now, especially with like the NFT craze, and like crypto, just jumping into crypto space, for like a lot of people right now is like like one, transparency, and then two, FOMO. With like this is a new space. This is a lot of money that's being thrown around. We can see how much money is being thrown around, and if I'm not getting in on it, or if I'm not like investing in a thing that is clearly going to that in my mind might take off, you're gonna kick yourself for like that $300 investment that turned into $20,000 in like a year. And right now, like a lot of the value being conflated, the value in the artistry is being conflated with the mid to short term value of the technology, but like specifically within the like as an investment asset, as opposed to like, this is an art piece that's beautiful and like worth having. It's like, how quickly can I purchase like a Picasso, but it's not because of the artist, it's because of the space and because of the technology. How much is my little gallery going to be worth in like a year, you know?
Yeah, I think that's right. Or that's how I see it. I don't know. I shouldn't put like a right wrong distinction on things necessarily always, but
We
I
are free
think
to be wrong on this
that's
podcast. Don't
something I
worry.
agree with. um, I would say I agree with that statement though, like in how I see it, what's going on. And, we may be wrong down the line. Like people may really just have been about this like space, and it might be like very durable and sticky, and people will continue to buy NFTs um, at this, like at with these valuations, and
Hmm.
it'll just live on forever. Um, I don't think that's necessarily gonna happen, and yeah, I think that's because I there are probably enough people out there like me who are like, "Okay, if I'm buying something, like, I want it to mean something more than just, like, how much it's gonna appreciate in value
Hmm.
for me." And maybe this doesn't actually mean that much to them. That being said, there might be, like, enough people who this we do live in a virtual like, look at us right now. We are existing mostly in a virtual reality, for others. Like, when people interact with this, they're gonna see us or hear us, and they're not gonna physically be in the same place as us, and that's how our ideas are gonna translate to them.
We are effectively in a 2 by 1 matrix.
So but, that might be reason enough for someone to be like, "Wait, I really live life, like, elsewhere in this, like, reality that I'm not actually in."
Hmm.
I don't romanticize that world. Like, I very much still, unfortunately, like, and I shouldn't admit this because I do care about the environment and preserving it, but, like, I still enjoy physical, tangible objects a
Hmm.
lot. So, like, books, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I I like the sensory kind of experience, and so maybe a virtual AR, VR situation will change the way I, like, think about these things, but I mean, in the world we live right now, like, I I'm not sure that this is actually very durable. Like, people are not gonna be that obsessed with NFTs forever, in my opinion,
Hmm.
in the way they look today, obviously, and I think that's, like, a very safe statement to make.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything profound.
I think one of the interesting
But
things right now, to me at least, for NFTs is that it's kind of like it's it's a more creator. It's very creator centric, as opposed to the platform. In a similar way, but like to a greater extreme, it's very similar to YouTube, which like YouTube, it offered a lot of the same things as a lot of other video streaming services, where it's like you can put up your video, people can watch it, we'll put ads on it, but like the big thing for a long time, and it still continues to be one of YouTube's like biggest assets and strengths, is that the platform gives money to the creators like directly for just like being a prolific, well viewed creator. People are interested in that. And right now, the NFT space is like, if you're a creator, you don't need to like, it takes it to the logical extreme where you don't need to like have the licensing from that platform. You don't need to be permissioned or or flagged as okay by the platform to be able to monetize your creations. Granted, right now it's in, I'd say, a more limited capacity just because it's not geared, like, a lot of the NFT space isn't geared towards just like, everybody views it and nobody cares about the ownership, like where YouTube is. But I mean, it seems to me like that is something that could evolve more in the NFT space so that creators are able to monetize in a way that isn't like something that's going to be restricted by changes in the platform's end user agreements or their changes in advertiser preferences.
no, yeah, I think that is definitely something um, that's, like, there's gonna be a dynamic shift in how how we think about, like, the or how people interact with NFTs, and that's gonna come with exactly that. Like, the people are gonna just, I think, have a lot of, um, uh, I think they're just gonna get lethargic of, like, what this is and just get tired of having to play in this space where it doesn't actually like mean that next dimension, like that next thing to them. It's not something that people like care and think about. And I think when folks go back to looking at an NFT and like caring about the ownership
Hmm.
and caring about who actually produced it, that I do think we will have that change. I think that'll just change the like traction that the space has.
Hmm. Uh, Real fast, I made up a short list of hot take things. Would you mind going through some of them?
Okay.
Okay. Um,
Okay.
Thoughts on the new metaverse? Metaverse being Facebook's fucking rebranding as the meta.
I think that Facebook does a really great job of taking literally anything that has some sort of traction behind it and just adopting it and being a vacuum. Yeah, and we already knew that, and that's what they're doing.
Perfect. Okay. One thing you like about the world that should continue to improve.
I like that. I think um, we're starting to hold people more accountable.
Hmm.
I think that the world that we live in right now is where it's like there's a lot more transparency, there's a lot more flow of information, and hopefully there's like a purification in the stream or the way it's presented that's like a little bit more I think even like more transparent and like more honest to the core true sense of what's happening. But I do like that there's more accountability on people's actions, on like how they live their life. um that being said, I think there's still a place for like privacy.
Hmm.
So i I think as the world like shifts into this like very transparent, very open space, like there has to be we have to allow for people to have their privacy and like a
Control of their
little
like
bit of
identity and stuff.
personal time, like control. Yeah.
Okay.
And we're talking about those ideas. That's where the world is ideally going to keep going.
Yeah. One thing that you dislike or hate about society that needs to stop. Cancel it. Doesn't need to be
I
abstract.
think the
It can
lack of
be
empathy we have when we're
okay.
listening to other people. I think there's a lack of empathy. And so that's taking away from like human connection. I think like there's a lot of transactional approaches to like the way we talk about impact, monetizing things,
Hmm.
efficiency. It's like starting to take away like there's a little bit less of a sense of just like pure um like unpolished, like a pure and unpolished essence of
It's like human to human
people
communication.
and things. And we need to be kinder, and we need to allow people to like get themselves somewhere rather than tell them off.
Okay. I would say Crocs, but this is also that's good. Uh,
You don't like Crocs.
Actually, no, I love them. I have a pair. Like I got a pair in the hallway. They're very comfortable at home.
Oh.
A guilty pleasure.
Dark chocolate.
Ooh, how dark we talking?
I like try to tread into the 90%
Hmm.
arena, and I'm like, damn, I really shouldn't have done that. 85 is your cap. But
Yeah, I've actually been turned on to dark chocolate in the last couple years. Like it's weird. Can't go back to like milk chocolate in the same way. It's just like, oh man, this is too much sugar.
it's just not the same.
This ain't chocolate.
It's like blue cheese. I never thought I would ever eat a meal that had blue cheese in it, and like now I do. And someone once said, and maybe this is very psychological, someone once said to me, listen, this is something you just start liking as an adult.
Mm.
And I don't know if I like actively seek out blue cheese, but I eat it now. So there we go.
Okay, yeah, that knocks out one of the so like something that you kind of like grew to love. Uh, and then last one,
I don't know if I love it,
okay.
but
Do you have anything that comes to mind? Something that you grew to love?
yeah, writing, I think. Um, my mom used to tell me, hey, like, why don't you try to summarize this and
Hmm.
go for brevity and concision? And I was like, that's so hard. And I would just like recount every single detail. And I think I still do that sometimes.
Hmm.
But like the craft of writing and loving that, that's something I definitely grew to love. And it actually informs like what I do in my free time
Hmm.
because I love writing circles and thinking and talking about the craft of writing. And I'm like, I nerd out about it. And I think that was very special people came into my life who like taught me how to think about writing in different ways. I always appreciated it, but I never like appreciated talking about the like approach. And I just like love it in
Hmm.
a weird way now.
Yeah, my favorite high school teacher was an English teacher, and she told me I have diarrhea of the mouth. And I frequently need to cut out the phlegm in my writing. Uh,
Oh,
yeah, it's problematic. If you read my piece again, New Zine recently came out. My piece was as salt. It's meant to be deliberately difficult to read, but it's supposed to be fun your first way through.
okay. I'm gonna read it.
Please do. Okay, and last one: most over criticized or overrated celebrity, whatever celebrity means to you. I'm gonna start with this one then.
I'm trying to, yeah, I love it. I love it. I love the silence. Actually, let's lean into that and see if we can like discover anything surprising about ourselves. No, I'm just kidding. Um, I will let you start though. That'll buy
Okay.
me some time.
Uh, I I definitely feel like Smash Mouth kind of is like it's a very like it's something a lot of people like to make fun of. Uh, but everybody, anytime you hear any Smash Mouth song, you're like, man, Mouth is fun to make fun of, but I goddamn it, I love this song. Like All Star, and then Now I'm a Believer. Uh, what else? There's like three or four songs, all of them in Shrek movies, and just like every single one was a banger. And but like everybody can just like, oh man, Smash Mouth, man, that's what are they, Nickelback or fucking U2 or something? I don't know. I'm not that great with. I'm not as big a music person as my brother. A lot of what I
Yeah, I'm not
appreciate
huge
comes
on
from
music.
movies. Hmm.
No, I think I'm exactly like that. I love music at times, and then I think that's actually music can be overrated in general.
Okay. How do you
I
mean?
go, I go months of, I can go like a stretch of months without playing a song
Hmm.
and playing music. And I like that about myself. I don't want to give anything that much power over like my consciousness and like be stuck in my head necessarily. So then I do that exercise.
Interesting.
But I think an underrated musician though on kind of
Hmm.
uh this line a little bit more seriously is this woman singer who comes out of the UK named Joy Crooks. I think she's great. I mean, I don't think I think she's up and coming and she's great. I like her music. So I would definitely check her out. She has like Amy Winehouse vibes,
Joy
and then she's
Crooks.
also of like South Asian descent. Um, yeah, yeah. Feet don't fail me now. All of these are great. Oh, I love all of them.
Nice.
I would listen to like the second or third. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's cool.
Actually, I wonder if you would get the audio because last person I did this with, I think I did on Meet, and they didn't get the video. Let's see if you can get it from the Discord. Well, it's a good thing because generally, so my recording is going to have it, and depending on how long I put of any song or whatever, I the video could a part of the video might have to get muted in the on YouTube because copyright and shit.
Yeah, yeah, totally. People should just check her out on their own time.
Okay. So you mentioned you do a lot of writing. Do you generally do you do fiction, nonfiction?
I mean, for a long time, my job was to write
Hmm.
nonfiction. So I did a lot of content writing and content strategy and um but in my for enjoyment, I do a lot of fiction,
Hmm.
short story fiction. I love um people like Gabriel Garcia Marquez with Chronicles of a Death Foretold. Uh, Exit West by Mohsin Hamid was an interesting book. I don't know if it was necessarily like my fave. A lot of famous people have put it on their list, but it was like a short novella that I think was interesting. I like short stories in general. I like this guy Munto,
Munto.
Sadat Hassan Munto. He was like a prolific short story writer of the South Asian from South Asia, India at first, and then Pakistan during the partition. He writes a lot about the partition. I particularly love this short story called Toba Tek Singh, and it's really interesting. It talks about the um, way like folks who were in asylums, whether they were Hindu or Muslim, and depending on like which asylum they were in, were transported across the border, even though like they didn't understand why they were leaving. Like they didn't understand the concept of a partition.
Hmm.
All they knew is that they were like literally being taken from one place to another. And it goes deep into the story of this one man, Toba Tek Singh, and it's so beautiful. I think that it also taught me to like look at the twist and look at how people can do what people can do with short stories. Like not always do you need to take a short story and then put a twist at the end. It can be like anticlimactic and still be so beautiful and powerful.
Hmm.
Um, Gabriel Garcia Marquez starts by telling you someone died and then takes you through the whole day to like the death, but you knew they died from page one, moment one, or like right at the beginning. And so I think that that's like a beautiful story.
Hmm.
Um, Chronicle of a Death Foretold is the book I'm talking about. Um, it's a short read. Yeah. So I like to write. I wouldn't call myself like the most talented writer at all, but I love like the act of writing. I like sitting there and like meeting the character
I
that's
think
like randomly coming out of my life experiences and people I've interacted with, but just coming onto a page. I think that that's a cool experience.
I think one of like I don't know. I'm probably being kind of a up my own ass about it, but it's like I'd say like the more obnoxious kinds of people with writing are the ones who are like, oh yeah, I'm a great writer. I'm a really good writer. Who
I mean, some people have the talent. And I don't think you can necessarily like I've heard someone say this and I think it may be true. I think you can cultivate talent, but like someone needs to have a little bit right at the get-go.
Mhm.
Which I think everyone actually has, so it's a catch-all. But maybe everyone would be like, no, you're wrong. Um, or a lot of people would say I'm wrong. But I think like when you have like there's a certain amount of talent that if you have, let's say a pinky's worth, you can actually cultivate it and like
Yeah,
shape it into
but this
like
is the
this
thing. I think,
immense amount of talent
but I think it's
with
like
practice.
the thing about writing as opposed to say like being a virtuoso in like an instrument or like graphical art or drawing. Like with writing, it's all about styles of communication and to say that you're a great writer, and specifically with like fiction writing, being a great writer for that, like it's so dependent on the audience that's reading it. Whereas like, a person who's a really good draw painter or something, they could like if they paint like a person's face, they have like the technical skill. Uh, it just is readily apparent, and like they're able to do a thing. I don't know. I'm probably I'm probably just talking out of lack of expertise. Um, like I wouldn't understand like an MC Escher painting that had like shitloads of work behind it, and like comparing that to a high school student doing a portrait and saying like, oh, but this one's clearly a person's face and this one means something. I don't know. To me, the
And
written word is
yeah.
it's so much more like it takes a lot more to get more out of it for an audience, for a person reading the thing,
I
I guess.
completely agree. Also, if you want to chop out when I'm like being overly verbose, like let me feel free.
It's perfectly
I
fine.
don't want people to get bored.
No, a lot of my anxiety with a lot of these podcasts is just like too much dead time, and even especially like me talking way too much and not like I have guests on every single episode has me in it. We don't need to hear shitloads of me talking.
No, it's nice to hear you though. But yeah, no, it's way better when it's a conversation. And I think sometimes I'm like, oh, let me just tell you all of my stream of consciousness right now. And okay, this is something that's like really particular to me.
Hmm.
I try to use like idioms and like phrases that are very, like common US phrases,
Hmm.
and I just do them horribly wrong,
Oh,
like all the time. And I'm like, people get the gist of it. But I was talking um the other day to like someone who really spends a lot of time with me and like has seen this happen over and over again.
hmm.
And he goes like, yeah, your most recent one was you tried to be like, I don't want to invent the wheel here. And he's like,
Oh,
you don't want to reinvent the wheel. You do want to invent
oh.
the wheel. How epic would it be to invent the wheel? And I was like, no, no, no. Like, what do we use wheels for? You know?
I had a
But it was just so funny.
I had a friend in college. Uh, he's one of the best people I know. But like when we were drunk, would like often like fuck up just things we were trying to say, which is natural. But like one of my favorite things that I think he said was like, "Look who's the kettle calling the pot a black guy."
Oh no.
It was funny. It was
It's funny because I don't even know what the actual like I think I know what you're talking about, like kettle calling the
the pot calling
pot.
the kettle
I
black.
don't even know the oh,
Yeah,
oh, okay.
but look who's the kettle calling the pot a black guy. Or maybe it was like who's the kettle? Look who's the kettle calling the black guy a pot. But we were talking about
I literally
we were talking
yeah,
about writing.
I couldn't even tell you what I think that actually like what is look who look who's the pot calling the kettle black. What does that mean? Like I think I know it. I don't actually know what it means.
They're both like at least like when everything was cast iron, they were both like black dishware, and so I was like, you're the same thing
Oh,
calling this other thing this negative thing, but you're the
the
exact
same
yeah
thing. Damn, that's interesting.
yeah. It's always interesting like learning.
Anyways,
It's always interesting also learning like the background of sayings, like where it originally came from. Like a stitch in time saves nine. Have you ever heard that expression?
hmm
Do you know what it means?
no.
Uh,
Wow. I'm really not doing well with this game.
a stitch in time saves nine. It's like when you would have a hole, or when you would have like either a little
Oh yeah.
hole in a shirt. If you fix it, then it saves you from actually having to stitch like a whole big to patch up a huge hole. So just doing a
True.
thing when it's a small problem prevents a much bigger problem.
That makes total sense. Yeah, and I probably could have thought a little bit more critically about what that meant and get come at that, but I just 5 p.m. on a Sunday,
We're all on the spot. It's good.
um, yeah, this is really fun. I mean, I don't know what we were talking about, but we probably talk a little bit more and then
Okay.
should.
So we were talking about writing, but we also just transitioned to like your involvement in Mochi. So you're batch three. You could talk about like
Mhm.
journeys, your team.
Yeah, I can. So my like goal was to write every day. And I
Hmm.
think a lot of our team, like one person had meditation daily and then another person had um a writing goal as well, I
Hmm.
think. We did relatively well and there was a period of time where people were just like traveling and we were losing
Uh-huh.
lots and lots of mochi. Um
You mean the
and
ETH or like or way or something?
the
Yeah.
youth, yeah, yeah, the what we had staked. And I need to actually get back to that because I've been bad at writing for my person like on a personal front every
Hmm.
day. But I love I loved doing it, and I think it's really important to like have something holding me accountable.
Hmm.
I'm really curious. Like I'm so excited to watch the path that kind of what this project turns into and how it's like iterating and growing and the community of people that are coming. It's very exciting.
Hmm.
Um, I think it's also like probably giving us a sense of like what a future, future implementations in education or other behavioral or group, activities might look like for professional betterment or, I mean, like there's so many ways that you can use something like this.
Hmm.
And we are, and a lot, I'm obviously it's more purely social and to meet and to like better ourselves and to find really cool people that we can connect with and connect in the metaverse
Oh man.
or online.
Yeah,
But
I definitely
it's
see like
cool.
the use case of like an enterprise version of like this accountability social space. But man, I don't think I'd like to have to like work in a company where like every single one of your KPIs is being measured by a fucking little rice ball, you know?
Let's talk about the flavor you chose. Like, I have mango. I love mangoes.
Yes.
They're very, very prominent in South Asia, which is like where my family is from.
Yeah, I mean my family's
We have
Filipino.
different types of mango. Yeah. We're like all about the mangoes.
Mango's the shit.
So
Mine's
what's your flavor?
I went with lychee. Um,
Oh, we love lychee too.
yeah, I mean,
That's such a thing. Like I love lychee. Sometimes I get lychee instead of boba,
mhm.
Insane.
This is actually one of the things that my wife like she semi frequently mentions like one of the things she misses the most about. So we lived in China before we were in Ukraine, and one of the things she misses the most is just like the variety of fruits. I mean, like minus the durian smell that was that was every once in a while in the vicinity. Um, just like the variety of
Oh, I
like
just went back.
yeah,
That smell was insane.
yeah.
But it
But
was so like it was also just like, wow, look at like how like the fruits are different here. Like they're
mhm,
so like there's something like I need to try. Like there's something that I have never had exposure to in my life that I like consciously had exposure to. And now like I go and there's so much of the world and so many people like this is part of their daily experience and it's not like this fruit, this one
mhm.
piece of food is like not, it's not part of my diet at all that I know of, right? But
Yeah. Have you had dragon fruit?
yes,
Dragon
yes.
fruit, dragon fruit is as close to an alien like food as there is probably on Earth. Just like or maybe like yeah, or maybe like I don't know if you know the anime manga One Piece, but there's like these magical fruit. They're called devil fruits. That's as close to a devil fruit as there is on the surface of the planet. That's like regularly consumed. I actually before me and my wife left, or no, it was right before like a vacation. We were going to be going to Cambodia. We just had like a lot of dragon fruit. I don't know for what reason, but like I got food poisoning, and I was just like blasting like red and like black seeds, and like
Oh no.
I thought I was bleeding out of every orifice in my body.
Oh no. But it was just dragon fruit.
Yeah,
Oh wow.
but like you could just imagine how all of the color was just like pretty nightmarish. Sorry if this is making you
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
No, it's not. I just I had ADD for a second and I looked to my right and I seeing if the AC because it's just gotten chilly in this Airbnb that I'm in.
Mm,
But I'm not grossed out by that. I mean, I almost thought about going to med school. Like,
okay, fair
you
enough.
can't be that grossed out about these things as much. Like, I mean, you can, and I guess if I were eating a sandwich right now, like maybe I'd be like, and put it down. But otherwise, no, we're good.
During so this past year or so, have you picked up any new hobbies or like kind of discovered anything
Yeah,
new that you're really into?
investing.
Oh, okay. Gotta get them dollar bills.
No, no, I have yeah, I think I've like next level network and socialization post COVID, like
Hmm.
vaccine. You know, I just like what I was like, great, I'm gonna make a million new friends, and I just made friends. I
Hmm.
just kept making friends in real life, and I was like, this is
That's good.
sick. These people are awesome. I started playing ultimate frisbee. That's where I made a lot of these friends. We
Nice.
played every Tuesday back when I lived in Chicago, and that's definitely not something I ever like. If you told me I was gonna play ultimate frisbee weekly, like I would just be like, no, I'm not. Like, there's no way I'm gonna pick up like a new, activity in group sport. Like, probably that's not like one I've already played, like volleyball, basketball, or maybe even soccer. But no,
Hmm.
I love it. I love ultimate.
Yeah, it's one thing
What about you? I'm itching to make this a two-way
no, go for it.
conversation.
Feel free to ask as many questions as you'd like. Also, I learned to make sourdough. Um, I've been doing a lot more cooking
That's
and kind of
awesome.
trying to make my own
Wow.
stuff.
I would love to try that one day. When you're back at stateside, we should all meet up in LA or New York or wherever
Hmm.
is convenient for you. And would love to try your sourdough. Maybe you can
Oh
try
yeah,
it out on a
I'd
bunch
love
of mochi
to
people.
I'd love to be able to like
Excuse
meet
me.
with like mochi people in general, like just because like I've been in Ukraine for since like mochi started, and so I've never been able to go out to any of like the meets with everybody, and that's
Hmm.
something that like it definitely it's supposed to be part of like the community building, actually like going out with people doing shit and like having fun. Uh, but yeah, I mean,
Totally.
at the very least, I've gotten to like meet all the people who came on for like the podcast, or have like worked on various projects within Mochi.
This might arguably be like a more in-depth like meeting and one that's got actually like more substance to it in terms of being able to like build a friendship and a relationship
Yeah.
um than like a quick meetup. Obviously, both would be awesome
That
to
being
be
said,
able to do.
if I'm properly drunk, like a discussion with me like can go way too long. Is the big problem for me.
No, it's okay. I actually don't drink alcohol.
Hmm.
And like it's interesting because that's just like never been part of my social experience
Hmm.
ever. So especially if I like caught you out at a mochi gathering, I'd probably be like really trying to veer the conversation back into, okay, so like tell me more. And like you'd probably just be like, Zunaira, goodbye.
Oh no, no,
But
no! I this is the
but
thing.
there's
I hyper focus in conversations when I'm drunk. This is something I've discussed with my wife. Um, if I am like if I'm in any way inebriated, I will I have talked like I've talked with like a white supremacist about why white supremacy is stupid for 5 to 6 hours straight. I talked with this like computer guy about like quantum physics for 3 or 4 hours. And my wife was like, she wants to go to bed, but she didn't want to be rude because we were having like the guest over. And she's just like, oh my God. She's just giving me the death stare the entire time.
I love it. It's yeah, no, I mean, getting into like past the superficial and into like
Mhm.
an actual meat of a conversation is
It's fun.
that's my jam. I love that stuff. Yeah.
You say you don't drink, so it's never been part of your social life. Is it like a thing you kind of grew up around? Like people not drinking, or is it just like a personal choice?
Yeah. So I'm Muslim and I practice Islam
Hmm.
to the best of my ability, let's just say, in a lot of ways. It's like a very core, I think, identifying piece
Hmm.
for me. So my family, we didn't grow up with alcohol
Hmm.
in at home, and I just never was that curious about it. I was like, dang, I like am already like I would say I'm an extrovert, so in social situations I didn't really need a social lubricant. So when we got to college and everyone was partying and drinking, I was still making friends.
Hmm.
And I would just like I felt very comfortable with that. And I think I've always been someone who never really was influenced to like try something um like I do try a lot of things
Hmm.
that are unexpected. For instance,
But not like
you
nothing that
know,
would like put you out of your comfort zone, or like that needed to like
well,
push
I
you into
mean,
the.
I like when I was 18 decided to travel to the border of Syria, which is probably the dumbest thing like anyone could ever do,
Uh,
right? But like that to me was not changing the core of like who I was. I was actually like leaning into who I am, which
yeah,
is
it's
like a
like a
very
validation
inquisitive
of your
person.
your
Um,
beliefs. Yeah.
yeah, I think with like substances, I so I pray 5 times a day. I've like read about these things and I think about like how things might like improve your life, but also like might cause a shift or like deter you from achieving
Yeah.
like some of the goals that you have or like making you a better human being to those around you. And if something like makes enough sense where I'm like, okay, I actually don't need this, or this is like, and this is also prescribed to me as like something either should do or shouldn't do,
Hmm.
and then I will actually decide whether I want to like add that practice into my life, or how to do it like more swiftly and more often. And like for instance, like with praying 5 times a day, I'm not always focused on the prayer and totally present. I would say like 90% of the time, I'm just like seeking that. If people, when people would talk about meditation, they talk about like a point after where they just like come out
Yeah.
and it's just like a lot of clarity.
Yeah.
Like I'm
Most.
seeking, that is probably 99% of the time is me just trying to do the act of
Yeah.
like getting my brain there. And then maybe 1% of the time during a prayer, I'll like hit that. And I think like there's value in trying and trying and trying and trying and trying and creating this like consistent practice. And so
Hmm.
there's certain things where like I just didn't have to add into my life that I thought would like deter from like the like my spiritual connection and stuff. And
Hmm.
so I never did it, even though I wouldn't call my family like very strict. I would say like I was taught this is not allowed in Islam and this is allowed and this is what's preferred and this is what's not
Hmm.
preferred. Um, and then I was at a certain point, you just have to make decisions for yourself. And so I think like I've found a lot of my connection and like my spiritual um alignment
Hmm.
at a stage where I was like more, stepping into adulthood
Hmm.
and like trying to figure out who I was independently because being an only child, you spend a lot of time with your parents
Yeah. I
and you
imagine.
actually like I personally was pretty like sheltered in some things, but I was exposed to a lot of other things. So I was like, okay, like now it's like free reign. Like I'm not at home. I need to figure out who I am in this world. And I've thought about like my narrative before,
Hmm.
but now let's see like how much of this stuff sticks or how much do I want to explore and how much of this is just like not something I need to like try or do. But like because I'm like content with who I am and as I am. And I think with certain things, I really was lucky in not feeling like like external need to do things. I don't think people push me to do things
Hmm.
either. I think I just like you can tell I know sometimes like exactly what I'm gonna do when
Hmm.
you talk to me. So even if you like try, not that I'm not adaptable for certain things, like I can adjust. And that has more to do with like ideas and conversations
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
think like empathy for another individual. But with like acts or putting things into my body, like I do care. Um, Besides sugar, I love sugar. Love it. Put a lot of that in my body. But I think it really matters and like your physical state and like what you ingest
Hmm.
affects the way you live in this world. And so I try like a lot I try to do a lot to preserve awareness of like who that is and like be healthy there.
That's good. I mean, like, not knocking it at all. It's I think my personal preference with like drugs and alcohol. It's like a new way to just kind of like a
Tap
different.
into spirituality.
Well, I'm not much of a spiritual person, but I think it's a
Okay.
different it's a different form of introspection, of just kind of like self like identifying, seeing what I'm like with altered states of mind. I think I kind of it like I don't follow the religion, but I kind of like the Dionysian like exploration of the mind. Um, but at the same
Yeah,
time,
I think people have such different approaches to like exploration
mhm,
and like whether it's spirituality or you want to call it exploration or God
mhm,
or whatever you think and believe in. And like I definitely like so many people in my life, like they are maybe more aligned with like your approach.
mhm.
And then I have a lot of people who have like a whole different tradition and approach. And that's what's beautiful. It's like maybe we can arrive at some sort of experience, like shared experience with a different approach, which means like it's not a monolith in like how we live our lives, which is just like
I think
that's
like
great for that. Like encouraging like that's just that's how we need to think about the world. And I think like the world, this is something that I think the world is like way more receptive to now,
mhm,
actually, which I love,
yeah.
you know.
Uh, I think part of my worldview with between like variety of like worldviews, faiths, belief systems, whatever. Uh, we are all different manifestations of like the the chaotic universe trying to understand and explain itself to itself. Because like minus the introspection and like conscious and individual conscience, like the universe is just happening without any purpose or cause in and of itself, unless there is something trying to understand it, and whether that be some sort of higher being that constructed it, or the people or the entities living within it that are capable of self-actualizing or contemplating themselves. Like, it gives existence purpose, in giving us the ability to make decisions and choose and interact with things. And so,
Yeah, I think yeah, I think that that's like I have one of my best friends, she like has a very similar view in like how she approaches life. And then we've talked about this a lot because Um, I think where I differ is that I actually really believe in like a higher power, like one being and
mhm,
one higher power, like so much so that I like if I try to question it, like my belief in it is like actually strengthened with everything I look at
mhm,
that like might disprove that to someone else. It like strengthens my belief in it, which is like we wear such different lenses, which is so fascinating to me because like we've a lot of shared experiences. She's also an only child. She's kind of also she went to school with me and like we did a lot of like similar things. We have a lot of similar interests. And then when we look at these things, like my inclination of the world and like the purpose, my purpose in this world and like my physical manifestation and my spiritual manifestation all are rooted in this higher power, this creator, and I'm like the creation. And then there's like this dynamic
Hmm.
that's like vertical. And for her, it's like randomness and us, you know, building like the world that like we and exploring the world that we were like put into
Hmm.
randomly, like came into existence into. And it's just so interesting because we like had so many shared, I guess, environmental, like like we have a lot of similar things that like in our background, like a
Hmm.
lot of shared approaches to how we were raised, and like the fact that our parents are like, you know, maybe like very professional, but also have like an immigrant connection, or like a
Yeah,
lot,
yeah.
we're minorities, like we're only children, and we look at things
Just in a
like this
wildly different
so
way.
differently.
Yeah.
And but we also then get to like the crux of who we want to be and what we see as like a good act, and something we'd want to stay away from. Like it's very aligned.
Hmm.
Like we both care about, like if you talk about the prison industrial complex, like we'll probably have very similar viewpoints on that. If you talk about like the refugee experience, we'll
Liberals.
probably have similar viewpoints on it. If you talk about um what is kindness and what is empathy, like we will have very similar
Hmm.
definitions of it. It's cool.
Yeah, I was in, or like my work study job in college, uh, with the coolest work study job title that was also still being paid minimum wage. I was a multi-faith ambassador, and my job was like organizing different religious groups on the campus to like do social events and like fundraising and stuff like that. And we would have like a weekly talk of like people like Christians, atheists, Muslims, Jews, Hindus, Wiccans, and just like kind of talking about different. We would set like a topic of like, oh, women in your practice, homosexuality, ecological justice, rights, destiny, all of these, and then everybody would just kind of discuss it from their own perspective, and it was always just a very interesting discussion. Uh, yeah,
Yeah, for sure. That's I love that stuff because it's always like cool to hear how people like think about certain things, and then find actually like shared experience and outlooks.
yeah. Okay.
Cool.
So we are coming up to time. Um, do you have anything that you would like to plug? Your Instagram at ZooChains.
Yeah, my Twitter, which I don't really use as often, but I'm trying to build up, is at Zunaira NA. Just my name and then my middle name,
Hmm.
first initial of my middle name. And my
Projects.
and
Anything else that you want to recommend to check out?
I mean, I like if you are building something and are a founder, would love to talk to you about your project. Like,
She'll fly out.
um, you know, I'll have one conversation on Zoom, and if it makes sense, I'll fly out. Um, yeah, if you know people building cool things that you think should exist in this world and like there's a market for, love to talk to them. If you write and you want to talk about writing, like we should do. I would love to meet anyone and anyone who wants to meet me, and happy to. If you're ever in Columbus or Chicago, link up.
Word.
Those are the two cities where I spent the most amount of my time. But maybe I'll be in New York and LA, and other places often too. So
Dope. And then for me, just gonna plug like we're doing. I'm gonna be starting uploading to a Mochi dedicated YouTube channel. I'm gonna be migrating all of like the podcast and the streaming stuff there. I post videos at least twice a week. I think these podcasts come up every 2 weeks, and then uh, it was 2 weeks ago now. The zine came out, issue two, nonsense. I wrote a piece. There are 8 other pieces. They're all wildly different from each other, and they're all pretty nonsensical. You can check those out at zine.mochi.club. Zunaira, thank you for being my guest. Thank you for your time and thanks for coming on.
I had so much fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. I'll lead us out. Stick around and for just a debrief.
That'd be cool.
R Mochi Podcast, episode 18. Adios.